Day 1 of retirement. You are 34 years old. You wake up at 7 a.m. from sheer habit, your body still operating on a schedule it hasn't yet realized it no longer needs to follow. You lie there for a moment, realize properly that there is nowhere on earth you have to be today. Lie there a while longer just because you genuinely can. By 10 a.m. you've cleaned the entire apartment, made yourself an actual proper breakfast instead of something rushed and functional, read for a while in a chair you rarely had time to sit in before, and entirely run out of things to do. By noon, you are, quietly and somewhat alarmingly, going slightly insane. Nobody told you retirement at this age would feel quite this strange. The first day genuinely feels like a very long weekend stretched out further than usual. You do all the things you've always said you'd do if you finally had the time. You read without rushing. You exercise without watching the clock. You cook a proper breakfast instead of something grabbed on the way out the door. You walk without any particular destination in mind. It's pleasant, genuinely leisurely. Everything you spent years working specifically toward. By 3 p.m. it starts to feel slightly hollow in a way you didn't anticipate. You check your work email out of pure habit, then remember with a small jolt that you no longer have a work email account to check. You think about calling someone to share something that happened today, then realize nothing of note actually happened. You had a quiet, pleasant, entirely uneventful day, and you're genuinely not sure what to do with that particular flavor of nothing. You've spent 12 years in a state of productive, almost constant urgency. Deadlines stacked against other deadlines, deliverables, the specific, reliable satisfaction of finishing things and immediately starting the next thing. An entire identity built around being someone who builds, who produces, who creates measurable value in clearly quantifiable ways. And now, abruptly, the measuring has simply stopped. And without that measuring, you're genuinely not entirely certain who you are anymore, underneath it. Tuesday, you try imposing some structure on the day. You write yourself an actual schedule, a morning routine, a block for reading, exercise, lunch, some kind of project in the afternoon. It helps, more than you expected it would. Having a shape to the day, even one you've entirely imposed on yourself, feels considerably better than the genuine formlessness of yesterday. The project you choose, somewhat randomly. Learning to cook properly, beyond the handful of reliable dishes you've leaned on for years. Not recipes you've already done a dozen times, actual technique, the underlying principles rather than just following instructions. You spend 3 hours watching instructional videos, taking notes in a way that surprises you with how natural it feels. Attempting a dish that fails on the first try and a second attempt that's merely passable, and a third that turns out to be genuinely, satisfyingly good. You feel the particular, specific satisfaction of learning something properly with your hands, of a problem with genuinely clear, immediate feedback. This works, this doesn't, try again differently. It's small in the grand scheme of things, but it's real, in a way that feels meaningfully different from the abstract wins of your working years. By Thursday, certain things are becoming clearer to you, gradually coming into focus. The freedom is real, and it is, in fact, wonderful. Nobody owns your time anymore. Nobody is actively waiting on you for anything. Nobody's priorities are being silently imposed on top of your own. You make a decision and you simply implement it, without a meeting, without anyone's approval required first. The genuine physical lightness of this, and it really is physical, not just conceptual, is something you needed to actually live through to understand, rather than simply imagining it in advance. But identity, it turns out, is considerably more complicated than you'd expected going in. For 12 consecutive years, when someone asked what you do, you had a ready answer. A role, a title, a company name that meant something to people, a context that told other people something real about who you were, or at least who you were within the specific world of professional productivity. Now, when someone asks, and people do ask, regularly with genuine curiosity, you say, "I'm retired," and watch them visibly recalibrate in real time. You're 34. They look at you and silently try to solve an equation that doesn't immediately add up for them. Some people are clearly impressed. Some are visibly confused. One person at a dinner party just 2 nights ago asked with apparent sincerity if you were between things, as though retirement at your age couldn't possibly be a genuine, intentional, permanent state. The question annoyed you considerably more than it probably should have, because some small, honest part of you was quietly wondering exactly the same thing. By the end of the first week, you've come to understand what the real work of this kind of early retirement actually is. It's not financial. You solved that part already, thoroughly, before stepping away. It's not logistical either. You genuinely have the time and the resources and the freedom now. The real ongoing work is the identity work, the deep, somewhat uncomfortable question of who you actually are when you're no longer primarily defined by what you produce for others. Most people don't get to seriously ask themselves this question until they're considerably older, often not until traditional retirement age decades from now. And many of them by that point have spent so long being defined by their professional role that the question itself arrives feeling less like an interesting invitation and more like a genuine existential crisis they weren't prepared for. You're 34. You have real time ahead of you. You can actually sit with this question deliberately, with genuine curiosity, rather than stumbling into it unprepared decades from now. So you start asking it properly, without rushing toward a premature answer just to relieve the discomfort of not having one yet. What do I actually want underneath all the conditioning? Not what sounds impressive to say out loud at a dinner party, not what would visibly impress someone. What do I, specifically, honestly, when genuinely no one is watching or evaluating me, want my actual days to look like? What do I want to learn now, purely because it interests me? Who do I want to spend my newly abundant time with? What do I want to build now, not for money, which is no longer the driving constraint, and not primarily for external recognition, but because it genuinely matters to me personally? These are good, worthwhile questions. They are also, you're discovering, considerably harder to answer honestly than any business problem you ever solved during your working years. Sunday evening arrives, marking the end of your first full week. You sit out on the balcony with a glass of wine and take honest stock of where things stand. 7 days. No alarm except by your own deliberate choice. No commute. No meetings you didn't genuinely want to be part of. No performance of busyness for anyone's benefit. No email you felt obligated to answer immediately. Nobody else's timeline imposed silently on top of your own. You feel rested in a way you genuinely haven't felt in years. Not merely less tired than usual, but qualitatively, noticeably different. Like something has been quietly refilling inside you that you hadn't fully realized was running low. And you also feel a kind of uncertainty that is genuinely uncomfortable, but that you're increasingly starting to believe is actually correct, even valuable. The uncertainty itself means the underlying question is real and worth sitting with rather than rushing past. You don't have the answer yet, but you have actual, real, fully owned time now to figure it out properly, without the usual external pressure to resolve it immediately. And that, you think, watching the city lights gradually come on below your balcony, that uninterrupted, unhurried time to genuinely figure it out, might be the single greatest luxury available to you right now. Retirement at 34 is not, it turns out, what you originally thought it would be. It's stranger than expected, more internal, more psychologically demanding, and considerably less purely about leisure than you'd imagined going in. But here is what it unambiguously is, without any real question. It is the genuine beginning of the first life you have ever had that is entirely, completely, and irrevocably your own to shape. And that wide-open, occasionally somewhat terrifying, genuinely thrilling beginning is worth every single year it took you to actually get here.